Hey, I'm Ben from Audiologic and welcome to Tech Tuesdays episode 2. Today we're going to be taking a look at a few tips on how to optimise the Shure MXA range of microphones. So to give you a quick idea of how important it is to optimise the Shure MXA microphones, I'm going to give you a quick comparison of how the mic sounds with and without processing. As of version 4 of the MXA 910 software, you've got IntelliMix processing now actually built into the mic, so that eliminates the need to always have an outboard DSP. So this is me talking with the MXA 910 currently. I'm now going to turn noise reduction off and the EQ that I've applied. So you're now listening to the mic without any processing other than AECs that we don't hear reflections. And you can hear how important it is to set up the mic correctly. So I'm now bringing back in my EQ and back in my noise reduction, and hopefully there's a big difference in what you can hear. So I'm going to carry on exactly where I left off last week. We've configured the Lobe layout for the microphone, and now we're going to go through the extra processing steps to get it sounding as good as possible. So I'm going to go down to my online devices down in the bottom left, and you can see I've got the MXA 910 here in the boardroom. So if I double click on this mic, I can now see how my 5 lobes are set up, and as I'm moving in the room, the lobes might actually jump around because of that new auto focus feature we spoke about. If I click across to the IntelliMix, I can now see the inbuilt processing and how the microphone's actually working. So I can see the different signal levels across each of my lobes. If I've got something like an external processor or maybe a Shure P300, I'm actually able to listen to each of the individual lobes, and then I can actually see how my positioning is and if I want to change the height, the width, or anything like that. So the first 2 steps of processing we've got is the AEC and the NR. That's the acoustic echo cancellation and the noise reduction. So the AEC is stripping out the far end audio from the near end audio, so that the far end of the call don't have to hear their reflections back at themselves. We've all been in that situation. It's really, really annoying. So it's important that you get your reference set up and then how much processing we actually need to use there. Next up, we've got the noise reduction, which is what you heard me turning on and off earlier. It's a really easy setup on the IntelliMix. We've just got low, medium and high options. So if we've got a really noisy room with very loud aircon, for example, we may need to dial the noise reduction up to high, but there's always a payoff between the amount of processing we use and how much content we're actually going to strip out the voice. So when possible, use as little processing as you can. If it's a relatively well-behaved room like I've got here, I've got the EQ acoustic panels installed behind me and on the rear wall, we could actually go for low or maybe medium noise reduction. Then we've got the Parametric EQ. Parametric EQ obviously is going to change the overall tonality, and again it really depends on how the room is being behaved. If you've got quite a reflective room and there's a lot of low end, then we might use either a low shelf or a high pass filter, and it's all about listening to the output of the microphone and making sure we're getting a very, very clean signal throughout. It's always going to change per room, and that's why commissioning these microphones and actually listening to them is so important. We've also got things like compressor and delay available to us. I haven't actually used them in our setup here because I think we can achieve the sound we need without using those. So another couple of options I've got on a per channel basis is the automatic gain control and also the priority. What priority is going to do is give priority to a certain lobe. So if, for example, I've got one microphone lobe pointing at the head of a table where we know a company director sits, we may give that priority to open up within the overall auto mix over the other channels. The automatic gain control is going to balance out both our quiet speakers and our louder speakers. If we've got someone that's very timid and talking very softly, what this is going to do is add gain to them and maybe subtract it off of some people that are more vibrant talkers and are going to be much louder. This gives us a nice even overall coverage, and it gives the consistency between different talkers, even if in the room they aren't all that consistent. So finally, we've actually got the IntelliMix or the auto mixer set output settings. This is going to decide things like how many channels can we have open at a time, and whether we're going to leave the last mic mode on. So a couple of tips that we use here, leave last mic on, I would definitely suggest you use. If you have that off, if no one's talking above the threshold, then there is the opportunity that all lobes could actually be off when people aren't talking. What this means is that at the far end of the call, they might hear the actual drop off in background noise in the room, and it gives you that classic "are you still there" scenario because there's no audio present. So definitely very much recommend that. And then the other option we have is the maximum number of open channels. So how many physical lobes within the room can be open at one time. Again, a smaller number tends to work better here. The more open channels we've got, the more background noise is going to be in the room. So because we've got a 10-seat boardroom here, I've opted for 2 open channels. Really, there shouldn't be more than 2 people talking simultaneously here. So hopefully that gives you a few really useful tips on how to optimize the MXA mics. Again, it all depends per room on how you commission the mic, how reflective it is, how much noise there are, and it's key that you listen to the microphone every time when you're commissioning it. We offer commissioning services, so obviously we're always here to help. Let us know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next week.